Hello, art historians. Welcome to our second lecture over the Baroque branches out, where we're going to start looking at the Flemish Baroque. So what we're talking about is Flanders, or the area that would today be known as Belgium. And this particular area, it's important to understand, is going to be a little bit like Spain, because they are still predominantly Catholic during the Baroque. So it would make sense that we're still going to see a lot of very religious scenes coming out of the Flemish Baroque or the Belgian Baroque. And we're going to see the adoption of that Baroque style. And the main artist that we're going to look at is Peter Paul Rubens, although there were two major artists to come out of this area, and the other one was Anthony van Dyck, who was so basically overshadowed by Peter Paul Rubens that he went and painted in England for the royal family instead, which turned out to be a really bad choice because he was the main painter for Charles I, who was later beheaded by the English people. But that's a whole nother story. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Peter Paul Rubens. First thing you need to know about Rubens is this is a man who has so much going on. He's awake at very odd hours. He's just constantly busy, constantly in motion, always trying to learn new things. He spoke 7 different languages. When he painted, it was kind of an intense process, and he moved around a lot, and he went through Italy, and of course while he's there he's going to be influenced by both classicism and the Baroque. He's going to be Italian trained, but one of the things that he likes to do is paint in what's called monumental forms. Like, he really liked that whenever you're looking at a painting in Italy, the people in it, the forms of the people, were the biggest thing in the painting, and he's going to take that to kind of a whole nother level. All right. The thing about him is he is religious, but he gets away with some things that most people probably wouldn't get away with. And one of the reasons for that is the fact that he is so likable. Like, he's very personable. People really like him. So that kind of gets him away with it a little bit. Okay, so Rubens has a very distinct style. His The way that he paints people is definitely shows that he's been to Italy, and he's definitely been exposed to, artists like Michelangelo. And he does adopt the very busy Baroque style. He uses a lot of light, kind of paired with that northern oil paint to create that fleshy feeling. But something about Rubens is his obsession with the form of the human body. So we'll talk about that. So if you notice, Rubens does like to paint the classical nude. He just does it in a way that's a little bit different. In no way, shape, or form is he going to paint a classical nude that is, and so like we have the 3 graces over here on the right. He's not going to show them as sculptural, and he's not going to show them as idealized. In fact, it's almost going to be a stylized naturalism that you could describe as very fleshy. And again, because he's using oil paint and he's a northern artist, he's able to make his figures look more like skin and flesh, especially with the Baroque lighting that he uses, rather than just looking like there's, people carved out of marble. Okay, so again, another example that there actually is a term called Rubenesque, and it refers to somebody who has a very curvy figure, which is something Baroque. He uses movement of flesh as a way to create movement in his paintings. And I just like to put this picture in here because I at one time had a little Rubenesque beauty. She's 4 now, but once upon a time, she was a little, curvy herself, and she had, she was, would have been considered by Rubens to be of a great soul because she is very soft. So yeah, my little baby was a little Rubenesque beauty when she was a little thing. Now she's all grown up and she's not anymore. So whenever Rubens goes to, Italy, he really likes the classical style. He is going to paint mythological scenes, but he's going to paint his, classical scenes in the very Baroque style. Now, he's also going to paint religious scenes because he is living in a Catholic country, and that was very popular during this time. But what we see with Rubens is his compositions of his paintings, again, like we see with Velázquez, are very busy and moving, and there's a lot of places that your eye moves to, and one of the ways he does that is through flesh. And he uses a lot of the light to kind of create that appearance of flesh on the bodies and give them kind of that realistic appearance. But that's not all he does. He does stuff like this too, which is Medusa, who is from the classical world. And you can see that intense Baroque lighting that he uses. Okay, so just another example of what makes this Rubens. All right, we have Baroque style lighting, which you can see reflecting off of the figures. You can see the movement and the fact that there is a composition to it. All right, so here's kind of some context to how Rubens gets his style. So again, Rubens is classically trained, right? He's trained in Italy, and the expectation was to kind of follow Michelangelo's example that you're going to be drawing from the classical past. They painted things that were idealized and naturalistically perfect. Michelangelo had kind of established that with everybody in the Sistine Chapel being shown as idealized and perfect, the way the Greeks had done. But that's not what Rubens saw. He's living in Belgium or Flanders at this time, and Flanders is very wealthy. And if you've heard of Belgian chocolate and things like that, like they were indulging quite a bit. You know, chocolate was coming over from the New World, and there's kind of a fitness problem, right? And also he's a northerner, like he's all about naturalism. That's, you know, kind of a little bit of a Dürer thing there. He's got kind of the classicism with the natural style. So what in his mind he started to do was that the physical body could reveal a lot about the internal soul. And unlike Michelangelo, who says that everybody should be fit, including like Mary and the Delphic Sibyls, he didn't agree with that. So, for example, if a man was shown as fleshy or out of shape, that could convey spiritual weakness along with physical weakness. And then on the other hand, if a woman was shown as soft and fleshy and curvy, it was kind of showing softness and motherhood, kind of the same ways of Mary. So kind of like, you know, a good soul and a soft body, soft soul. So with Rubens, the body kind of has a deeper meaning. So for example, this one right here, which is Jesus being raised up onto the cross, you can see that the men who are putting him up on the cross are extremely muscular in tone. But in this particular, that Baroque movement, like you can see the light source and your eye just follows up in the composition. Like all the lines go that direction, including the rippling of the muscles. But they're struggling, like they're so strong and they're struggling to raise him up because this is such a heavy thing that they're doing. And Jesus is almost too powerful for them. So the body really conveys a message here. All right. So this is the work of art that you guys had to look at for homework. All right. And I asked you to look at what seems to be happening in this particular scene. So you have up here at the top, if you look at the very top part of this, you have Zeus and his wife Hera, or Juno. So this would obviously be Jupiter if we were going Roman. And this is the goddess of marriage and motherhood and home. And then you have her husband, who is right there. And then you have a peacock, a couple of peacocks next to them, which are her symbol, but that's because peacocks mate for life. They never stray once they find the right partner. So it's kind of this idea of that Zeus and Hera in this side are joined for life, and then our eye goes down to where these cupids and cherubs are holding this portrait of a woman that this man is looking longingly at, just adoring her. And he's so enamored that he's put down, if you look down here at the bottom, he's put down his shield and he's put down his fight, because this marriage is going to bring peace, not only to him, but also to his kingdom. And right behind him is a physical representation of France. And France is saying, this is a good marriage. Like, this is a good thing. We completely approve of this. So you can see the movement is Baroque. The lighting is Baroque. The fact that it's a busy composition is Baroque. And it's also got a classical scene that's in it. All right. The person who commissioned this scene is Marie de Medici, all right, who came to France to marry Henry IV, all right, of France. Or he came to France from Italy, all right, and she wasn't well liked. The French weren't really big fans of women from other countries coming in to marry their rulers. They kind of have a problem with that. Marie Antoinette was treated very badly from Austria. And after Henry IV died, she raised their very young son, Louis XIII, and basically ruled France as regent. Like, she ruled France. And she went to Peter Paul Rubens and she said, I want you to create 21 paintings that are in a cycle that show basically the cycle of my rule, of my arrival to France, me giving birth to the heir, my marriage, all of these things to show this huge paintings, to show like her huge impact on Italy. All right. So Rubens took it on. All right. He was like, okay, I'll do this. It's a really good commission. It took him 3 years to do it. And Rubens is a lot like Raphael, that he had a studio of workers helping him work on this. That's kind of an important thing because Rubens' style will kind of spread a little bit because he had so many people working in his workshop. And this cycle of paintings, and you're only going to have to know one of them for the 250, but it's a cycle. All these paintings were meant to be in a progression of a story, almost like a narrative through these different paintings. So for example, when Marie is shown giving birth to Louis the 13th, it's shown as a nativity scene to basically say that she was like Mary giving birth to the Christ child. And here she is, this one is Marie arriving in Marseille, and the maidens of Neptune or Poseidon are escorting her in. Like basically she's riding in on the waves and the females kind of represent the waves. And she's like, you know, a divine arrival into this. So this particular scene is Henry IV receives the portrait of Marie de Medici. And if you look at this painting that she asked for, not Henry IV, she asked for these paintings after Henry was dead. Here it is showing this union blessed by the gods of love, which Rubens may have taken a little bit of his classical knowledge into this because Zeus cheated on Hera all the time. This was not a happy marriage. She was incredibly jealous of him. Henry did not really treat her very well. He cheated on her all the time. And the fact of the matter is, Henry IV hated Marie de Medici. He did not want to marry her. He had another woman that he wanted to marry who he basically cheated on Marie with through their entire marriage. This was a political marriage that France is whispering in his ear that this woman who he just seems to adore will bring peace to not only him, but also to France and Italy. It's a union of not only people, but countries. So the peacocks are in there because this is a marriage for life. And it basically makes this painting look like Henry IV was madly in love with her, but she's the one who asked for them, not him. She's the one telling the story, and she's telling the story completely wrong. Because this is what Henry IV said whenever he actually had to marry her. He's doing this only for his kingdom, not for any other reason. He does not want to marry this woman. And you can even see in this painting of the royal family, he's not thrilled about being married to her. There's a distance, the children are between them, like it's not a really happy situation. All right, so we're going to stop here, and the next part of our lecture will go into the Dutch Baroque, where we're going to move into the Netherlands to look at what is happening there in the more Protestant countries.